During this time, around 1998, the GBC and their supporters of the multi-guru system were making a big issue, when they had been for some time, where they claimed that the current gurus were traditional gurus. This term was used to reinforce their claim that the current gurus were acting as regular Diksha gurus in the traditional and bona fide sense. They were carrying on with the tradition of the disciplic succession, and therefore they were acting as traditional gurus as opposed to being a Rtvik representative of Srila Prabhupada, where Prabhupada would remain the current Diksha guru even after he physically departed this world. They claimed that that system was not at all traditional, and therefore they argued it had to be rejected, that it was bogus. Their point being that Srila Prabhupada wouldn't have wanted us to follow, their point was that Srila Prabhupada would have wanted us to follow the traditional path of the traditional sampradaya or disciplic succession. I had an issue, however, with their use of the term traditional guru. Because were they really acting as traditional gurus? My research led me to the conclusion that the current gurus were not traditional at all. First of all, as I pointed out, they fell far short of the sastric definition of what a true Diksha guru is. The true Diksha guru is defined as one who saves his disciple by the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. In ISKCON, this torch is held by Srila Prabhupada and his transcendental teachings, not by those who the GBC have ordained to perform the initiation ceremonies or perform the duties that were assigned to the GBC. This led me to ask then, just what was the real position of the current gurus? Even the GBC had argued that they appeared to look like gurus only as long as they performed the duties that Srila Prabhupada had prescribed to the GBC. As I've shown, performing those duties is not what defines or makes one an actual guru. So what really was the true position of the current so-called gurus? Well, for that, I was going to have to do some real meditation and some real thinking. And it would require the help of the great yogi analytical thinking cap. So I went to my closet, and yes, I found it. And here it is, my great yogi analytical thinking cap. Oh, Jai. So, after putting on the cap and meditating and chanting the transcendental sound vibrations of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, another huge crack in the GBC's position regarding the Guru issue was revealed to me. A disciple is to accept his or her guru as the ultimate master. Guru is the spiritual master for the disciple. And the word master, it means that you accept the master as your all, and it means, oh, well. And the word master means you accept him as your all and all authority in life. Since the GBC was making this big point about the gurus, their gurus being traditional, I saw that the traditional guru is really the master within his own ashram, where he acts as guru. That is the actual traditional setting for the guru. In the traditional sense, that traditionally, the highest and ultimate authority within an ashram is the guru of that ashram. He is the master. He is and that is the traditional setting for a guru. In the traditional ashram setting, the guru is like the father, and his disciples are like his many sons. Not too long ago in society, or in a patriarchal society, the father is known as the master of the house. As long as the father is living, he is the master in the house. But when the father dies, then generally only one son can remain in that house, and he becomes the next master of that house. The other sons generally have to move out and get their own homes, and then they will become the master of their own house. It breeds conflict and mayhem for there to be 2, 3, 4, 11, 111, men all claiming themselves as the master of the same house. There can only be one true master of the house. Otherwise, the situation will descend into chaos. That is the case amongst householders, and it is also the case amongst gurus. As long as the guru is present in the ashram, he is the master, and his disciples are like spiritual sons. But when the guru leaves this world, traditionally, he appoints only one of his sons to be the heir of his ashram. The other sons, if they want to become masters also, they must move out and start their own ashrams, where they then become the master of their own ashrams. Traditionally, no guru will appoint multiple disciples to become gurus within the one same ashram or organization of ashrams. That would be like the father giving his one house to 10 sons and appointing not one of them to be in charge. It would end up in chaos. However, the GBC claimed that this is, in essence, what Srila Prabhupada had done. They claimed that he had appointed 11 gurus who would all function as guru within his one ISKCON organization, and that they could add more gurus later. When Srila Prabhupada was present, ISKCON had but only one guru, one master. And in order for the ISKCON mission to continue on smoothly, after his departure, he established the GBC, and he instructed that in his absence, the GBC, as the entire governing body commission as a whole, would become the ultimate authority for ISKCON. Okay, it's still summer, and this is hot. Good in the winter, though, especially with shaved head. That was a Prabhupada hat, we called them, for those who don't know, because Srila Prabhupada used to wear them. Anyway, this is from Srila Prabhupada's last will and testament. 1, the governing body commission, the GBC, will have the ultimate managing authority over the entire International Society for Krishna Consciousness. The GBC body, as a single authority, is the ultimate authority for ISKCON. So where does that leave the current ISKCON multiple gurus? According to Guru Sadhu Shastra, the disciple must accept one's guru as his ultimate authority. But one can only have one ultimate authority, and Srila Prabhupada instructed that in his absence, the GBC shall become the ultimate authority for ISKCON. Again, where does this leave the ISKCON gurus? In the years before Srila Prabhupada departed, Srila Prabhupada never spoke or wrote about there being any other authority within his ISKCON mission, other than himself and the GBC. He never wrote or spoke about a future ISKCON that had multiple gurus or masters separate from the GBC. The only thing that he wrote or instructed in this regard was that for the GBC to serve as the ultimate masters for the entire ISKCON mission, which means and includes all of its ashrams. And even more, Srila Prabhupada had assigned duties to the GBC, where they were to oversee the spiritual well-being of the members in their zones, where they were to give spiritual guidance. So where does this leave the current gurus or masters? When we review the duties that Srila Prabhupada had assigned to the GBC, we clearly see that he prescribed them to be spiritual authorities for ISKCON, not mundane managers. They were to give spiritual guidance, care for the spiritual well-being of the members in their zone, and collectively, they were to be the ultimate authority or masters for the members, both senior and new. He even explicitly stated that the GBC was not to be so involved in the mundane management. That was left to the temple presidents to handle. The duties and positions given by Srila Prabhupada to the GBC would, yes, they would be normally executed by a guru in the ashram. If the but those duties and prescribed duties don't make one a guru, don't define one a guru, but they would normally be executed by a guru in the ashram. If the GBC were to execute and follow the instructions that Prabhupada had given them, and they continued to perform these duties of giving spiritual guidance for all the members, then where does that leave the current gurus? Where would it leave them? Yes, the title Prabhupada means master at whose feet all their masters sit. In that sense, there may be other lesser masters, but who is the master over and above all other masters? He is the real master. Anyway, I'll come back to these arguments later on. But as at this point in my journey, my realization was that since the GBC ordained new gurus, since the GBC decides who is authorized to perform initiations for the new members and who is not, and the GBC gave themselves the authority to take away such authorization, and if needed, even expel a guru from ISKCON altogether, that means that the GBC had full authority over the ISKCON gurus. I'm just going to share a little tidbit that at one time there's an ISKCON guru, but he was also acting as a temple president, but the congregation at that temple went to the GBC and complained, and the GBC had that guru removed as the temple president. In this way, the GBC have full and ultimate authority over and above the ISKCON masters. That makes the GBC the master of the sub-level masters who perform the initiation ceremonies. When the new members are initiated, they are not just considered disciples of the guru who performed the ceremony, but they're considered as initiated members of ISKCON. Should their guru fall down and take leave of ISKCON, the disciples are urged by the GBC to stay and remain as bona fide members of ISKCON. Their being seen as bona fide members of ISKCON is not dependent on their submissiveness to their guru, but it depends on their submissiveness to the GBC. The GBC is the one who authorizes the new members as being bona fide members of ISKCON, and not the gurus who perform the initiation ceremony. In 1998, I used my analytical thinking cap, my great yogi analytical thinking cap, and to study this aspect of this issue. And I came to the conclusion that the current ISKCON gurus were actually acting more like Rtvik representatives than they were acting as actual gurus. The actual or true guru is defined by Srila Prabhupada, and Scripture is the one who bears the torchlight of transcendental knowledge and saves that soul by delivering them to Krishna. The GBC have recognized Srila Prabhupada as being the prominent Siksha Guru for all the members of ISKCON because they have rightfully acknowledged that it is Srila Prabhupada's transcendental teachings that all the members of ISKCON must take full shelter of. In essence, the GBC authorized or ordains the ISKCON gurus to perform the initiation ceremonies by which the new bhaktas and bhaktins become duly initiated members of ISKCON. But who must these initiated members of ISKCON, who are they supposed to accept as their ultimate authority? According to Srila Prabhupada, the GBC. It is the GBC who authorized the person to perform the initiations. It is the GBC who has full authority over and above the gurus that they authorized. So then who is the real master for the new members? The master under which all sub-masters sit. That is the GBC as a whole. Well then, doesn't that bring us to the conclusion that the GBC is the actual real master? They're the real authority. Aren't they the real spiritual master for the new devotees and not the so-called guru? Say what? Well, that's where this line of analytical thought had taken me. Oh God, what sort of nonsense is this? How can the GBC as a body be the real and actual guru of the new members? Even if that were possible, that again would not leave the current gurus to be no more than ceremonial priests who perform initiations. But they wouldn't be doing that on behalf of Srila Prabhupada. Instead, they would be performing those functions on behalf of the higher authority that authorizes them to act in this way, which is the GBC. The GBC ordains those men to perform the initiations. But yet the GBC remains the ultimate master and authority over and above these so-called sub-level gurus who performs the initiations. But that would make the GBC as a body the real guru of the new members. And there's no doubt that this is really a weird and bizarre idea. But I'm a logically driven person. I reanalyzed it. And that's where my logic brought me. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying that this is a bona fide system. I'm not promoting it as a solution to the issue. I'm not promoting that this is what Srila Prabhupada wanted. No way. What I'm saying is that this is where my analysis of the current system took me. I was trying to figure out, where do the current gurus really stand in this issue? What is their really position here? Are they actual gurus? Well, they don't carry that torchlight of knowledge. Are they, in what other ways? What is their actual position? Well, they're master, they're gurus, that means they're master. But are they the master? Well, there's the ultimate master, the GBC. So my logic was, this was just following a logic thought, logic deduction. And I reached this point. What I'm saying is that when you really examine it, when you really analyze the current guru system in ISKCON, as it has been set up by the GBC, but this is what it really boils down to. This is what the current system really amounts to. This is what the current system is really functioning as. And again, what am I saying that system is? That the GBC as a whole is actually the real masters of the new members. They're the masters over the ones who are performing the initiations. And those whom the GBC call as gurus, they're really just ordained to perform the initiation ceremonies. Oh yes, they perform some of these functions that were prescribed by Srila Prabhupada to the GBC, but that doesn't make them guru. That doesn't define them as actual guru. So they're just being ordained by the GBC to perform the initiation ceremony and have the show bottle appearance of being the actual guru. But the real actual master in this whole scheme is the GBC. So I came to the conclusion that the current system in ISKCON is actually a Rtvik representative system. And that the new gurus are actually Rtvik representatives, but they're just not Rtvik representatives of Srila Prabhupada. Instead, the current system in ISKCON is that they're actually Rtvik representatives of the GBC. They function under the authority of the GBC. The GBC ordains them to perform these initiations. The GBC ordains them to accept the air of being an actual guru. And the GBC is okay with them performing their prescribed duties. But this is all under the authority of the GBC, which means the GBC is the real master. And if new members come, they take initiation from their guru, but in the end, they have to accept the GBC as their ultimate master. So I was writing, I actually wrote this in a paper to the GBC, and I wasn't proposing that this is the system we should adopt. I mean, no way. Absolutely no way. What I was doing, however, was just analyzing what the real state of the current guru system was in ISKCON. The GBC were claiming that the current system that they had set up was the traditional system. My analysis was that it wasn't at all traditional. It is even further from traditional than the system of the Rtvik Representative of the Acharya system, because this is the Rtvik Representative of the GBC system. And that was weird. Yeah, quite rightly. I mean, that was pretty bizarre. Well, yeah, exactly that too. The thing is, I came to that conclusion as I was writing my next email to send off to the GBC. And as I wrote it, I could see just how weird and bizarre it really was. But not my conclusion. My conclusion was not weird and bizarre. What was really weird and bizarre was the current system in ISKCON. It wasn't traditional. It's just weird and bizarre. And as I came to this conclusion, it was obvious that this was so extremely close to what the Rtvik Ras supporters were saying, except that they were saying that these men who performed the initiations, ceremonies, that they were to be representatives of Srila Prabhupada, not the GBC. Still, I chose to write down these conclusions and send them off to the GBC. Why? Well, I did not do it because I had crossed over and was now supporting the Rtvik Ras idea. I wasn't trying to use this to show, hey, why don't we just, it's already almost like Rtvik, why don't we just accept Rtvik system? I wasn't doing that, not at all. I still had my reservations. I still thought that the system of Rtvik, an ongoing Rtvik system, where the spiritual master was no longer living and present and could no longer make the last final decision on whether to accept someone. You can't force a guru who is no longer living to be their disciple. So I still had my reservations. So I wasn't supporting the Rtvik system, the Rtvik Ras system. But the point why I wanted to send it off to the GBC is that the GBC had been dealing very harshly with the Rtvik Ras supporters. They labeled them as fallen, as envious. They were being kicked out of the temples. Their services were taken away. Their ability to serve Srila Prabhupada was taken from them. But who were they? They were our fellow God brothers and God sisters. They were souls who had dedicated their lives to lovingly serve Srila Prabhupada and Lord Krishna. They are very rare souls who have dedicated their lives to the propagation of the holy names of Krishna. And they should be shown that respect. On the flip side, we can say the same for the Rtvik Ras supporters. They should also see that the current GBC and those who support that system, they're also dedicated their lives to the propagation of the holy name. So when I reached this bizarre conclusion, and actually the conclusion itself wasn't bizarre, but when I reached the conclusion that the current system in ISKCON was actually so bizarre, that I decided that I would send this off to the GBC for the purpose, the purpose was I wanted to try to use this to diffuse the differences between the two camps. I wanted to show them how so close their system was to the Rtvik representative side. I wasn't saying that this was right. I was just showing what the system really was. It is the GBC who authorize these men to perform initiations and have allowed them to perform these other duties that were prescribed by Srila Prabhupada to the GBC, which gives them the appearance of guru, but they're not actually. That doesn't make them a guru. And if you take that away, then they're just being authorized to perform the initiation ceremonies, yet the GBC remains as the ultimate master, the real master in ISKCON, which all the new members ultimately have to accept the GBC. When their guru, if their guru falls down or their guru dies, they remain under the authority of the ultimate authority of the GBC. So they are the real masters then, and not the ones who are performing the initiation ceremonies or carrying out these duties that are supposed to be carried out by the GBC. So anyway, I sent this off. I actually sent it to the GBC. I wanted to see if they would kind of realize the same as I came to the realization that the current GBC system of gurus was practically the same as the Rtvik system, where Srila, they were Rtvik representatives of Srila Prabhupada, of the Acharya. The current system was really a Rtvik system where they were representatives of the GBC. So I wanted to try to use that to diffuse the differences. And then, once that's diffused, take down the fever pitch a little bit, and then we can analyze what the real system is supposed to be. I wasn't proposing this, and I wasn't trying to make it so they would accept the Rtvik side. I just wanted them to see that really their system was hardly any different, and then we'll go from there. But really, what I was really doing for the whole time, for the 2 years, was just trying to get the GBC to just look at my proposal and see that they needed to restore these duties back to the GBC. But my research was taking me further and further closer to actually start studying the actual Rtvik Ras issue. Up to this point, I had still not even attempted to start studying the actual Rtvik Ras side. I was still avoiding that. I had got into this study on what was the real guru. And that's what, and then I tried to, real guru is the one with the torchlight of knowledge, and well, that's not what the ISKCON gurus are. And if we take away these functions, then where do the ISKCON gurus really, what is their really function? Where do they really stand? And that's what I started researching. And that's when I realized and came to this conclusion that the real master is the GBC. They're not the real master. And then, so where does that leave them? So it leaves them as basically Rtvik representatives of the GBC. So I wrote this to the GBC, and what I asked is, I proposed that they start referring to the ISKCON gurus as representative gurus, because they are representing the authority of the GBC. The GBC ordains them and authorizes them to perform the initiation. So I was saying that they should be known as representative gurus. I wasn't doing it so that to really, I just wanted to diffuse the situation. And actually, when I wrote it, and I thought, why am I doing this? I really didn't, I was really kind of questioning myself. But I sent it off. And what I really wanted them to do was just what I've been trying to do for 2 years, get them to understand they should restore the system back to the way it was when Srila Prabhupada was here, and give these duties back to the GBC. Where that leaves the gurus, my main point was, do this first. Put the GBC right in order, then, under spiritual strength, figure out the guru issue. But this is where my analysis had led me, and it was quite bizarre, but I sent it off the GBC anyway. Again, I never received a reply or correspondence from a single GBC member. However, a devotee on the GBC conference sent me copies of some of the correspondence where 2 members of the GBC actually agreed with this paper and had proposed this, that the rest of the GBC accepted. Those 2 members, well, one of them was Bhakta Charu Maharaj, and the other was our godbrother Sridhar Swami. But again, I never got a reply from the GBC. And again, all I got was the same cold, and no, we're not going to go there. It's cold, silent treatment. What we're, excuse me. So obviously, this wasn't something I was proposing. It was just where my analysis had led me. And what I was realizing, analyzing and realizing what the current system really was. It was hardly any different from a Rtvik representative of the Acharya system.